how do we begin to cultivate a sense of belonging to ourselves? Like we deserve to be in the world. We deserve to be in the world as we are. And then how do we selectively begin to unmask? Meaning, I don't think there's one authentic version of us. I think we all have multiple sides, and no side is a lie. But how do we be more choiceful about what parts of us we show to other people? Hi, I'm Peter Godard, and you're entering A World Gone Good.
Well, hello, my name's Steve, and this is the place where we shine the light on everyday people making good happen each and every day. Welcome one, welcome all to World Gone Good. Have you heard my news? I am deep into the weeds, I tell you, of writing my third cozy mystery in my series, The Dog Walking Detectives. Are you all caught up with the first two? Head to Barnes & Noble or Amazon websites and do a quick search for book one called Drown Town and book two called Murder Unmasked. Both are available in paperback or download them on the cheap right to your device and save a tree. They are two fun and funny summer reads. Drown Town and Murder Unmasked await your reading pleasure on Barnes & Noble and Amazon websites. So, a long time ago in a Hollywood not too far away, at least for me, it's about an 80-minute drive, I was young, I was pretty, and I'll admit I was dumb. The perfect combination, if you will, to enter the city of stardom and quickly crash and burn. I had no idea what I was doing when I moved to Los Angeles, California, but like a lot of people, I had big dreams. I also had a big secret, which may not have been a big secret as I thought apparently it was, but I guess to other people it wasn't. Here it is. Here it was. I was gay. Side note, highly recommend you check out Overcompensating on Amazon. I related to that show a lot. Anyway, I just graduated from college, and on the night of graduation, I drove home from Tucson to Phoenix to spend one night at my parents' house before taking me and my big dreams and big secret out to LA the very next morning. On that drive home, diploma in hand, or at least the cover, I think they mailed it to us back then a few weeks later, I rolled down all the windows in the car. I let all this hot Arizona summer June air waft in as I blasted the air conditioning, and I said out loud, I swear this happened, I said, I don't know where this is all going to take me, but I'm going to be happy. I'm going to follow my joy. Part of that was directed at my big dreams to become a TV and film writer, producer, director, and apparently podcaster. And the other part of that was directed at me, being myself and allowing that truth to guide me. My guest today knows a little something about this kind of joy. Peter Godard is a leadership coach who nurtures people to get real about their own personal equity. He's committed to self-definition, shifting power, co-conspiracy, joy, and mind, body, spirit. And let me be very clear, you don't have to be gay or queer to listen to today's episode. We all need a little more joy in our lives, and that joy starts within ourselves. Here comes Peter Godard, ready to share some queer joy that's good for all of us. So my guest today just posted something recently on Instagram, and that's where we're going to start. We're starting not at the beginning of your life. We're starting at the right now of your life. You posted a video, and the question you asked was, who are your people? And you expressed who your people are. So I'd like to know more about that, and so would our audience. Where did this idea of who are your people come from, Peter? And why did you decide to take to the Instagram waves and ask us all who our people are?
Oh, that's brilliant. Thanks for asking that, Steve. The question actually originates from my shared work as a coach with my co-conspirator, Mona Khan, over at Social Identity Coaching Lab. And the two of us created a set of liberated icebreakers, which are questions to open conversations that aren't just about who are you and, what's your title and what's your role. The two of us love this question. And I posted about it on Instagram because I wanted a fun way of this growing audience who has tuned in to chat with me on Instagram about Queer Joy to know something about me. And an unexpected surprise was that some of the people I've been connected to started responding to me and telling me who they are. And that felt like absolute social media magic to connect person to person like that.
Yeah, we've been talking about that a lot lately on here, about community, about real connection. And so that sounds like something that's inherent to you, something you learned, something you craved. Where'd that come from for you?
So in some way, I think it's inherent. I grew up on an island in northern Vermont, Grand Isle. It's in Lake Champlain, and my dad and my mom were the owners of the general store on that island.
Shut up.
The place that we lived was upstairs above the store. And so as a little kid, my mom says, well, when you got grumpy with me, you'd go down and hang out with your dad. And so it was great because as a little kid, I just thought it was normal for everybody in your town to come and go from your house every day.
It's like the Olsens from Little House on the Prairie.
Totally. Yes, 100%. Maybe a little more modern. We also sold gas.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that's that. So it is that. And also, there are times in my adult life where I felt very isolated. Probably the most recent was at the pandemic. And a few meaningful friendships, chosen family members we had fallen out of contact with one another. They moved out of town. And after that, I made a real intentional effort to rebuild my community. And what I learned from that is part of what is like really motivating me in the work that I do.
And the work you do is that you are a queer leadership coach, which is three very different things. Break it down for us.
I am queer, and I work with a lot of queer people, not exclusively. And for me, also, queer is not just a sexual identity. It's also a way of holding yourself in the world. So to the question of who are my people, it's people who sort of reject fitting in a box. So I can say I work almost exclusively with queer people if we take the people who value self-definition meaning rather than a sexual identity meaning. And I work as a leadership coach, meaning most of the people I work with, I'm working with them about their professional lives, their careers. I work with people who feel like what I've gotten up until now has been great, but if I keep doing this for another 10 or 20 years, there will come a point where I'm no longer satisfied. And so we work together and figure out where to go next.
Can we step back for a second and talk about the word queer? Because that was for a very long time a negative word. And it seems to have been reclaimed by this community in a great way and spun. But I do know that, people of a certain age listening cringe when they hear that word. I mean, I do to a degree because I'm a gay man myself. And so I remember all the other names that were used in my younger years and sometimes still in my current years. What do you think about that, about reclaiming that word?
I mean, it's complicated, right? I live on the north side of Chicago, and 5 years ago, I could never imagine this happening. But my husband and I were walking to the lake one morning recently, and a person was trying to turn left and didn't enjoy our being in the crosswalk. And so after we got through the crosswalk, the person yelled the F epithet out the window at us. There is harm that happens from these words. And certainly, I don't think I ever was called queer as an epithet growing up. I think I have a number of older Gen X and baby boomer friends who definitely were. So I honor that it is a painful word for many. But for me, it's a joyful word because it encapsulates in a bigger way for me who I am than just the word gay, which I identified as gay for many years. And then at some point, it just felt like it didn't fit any longer. And certainly friends who are younger, millennial and Gen Z folks, see queer in a different way altogether.
It's very interesting. I was in my 20s, and I laugh about it now because it's so ridiculous. I was coming out of the gym at like 9 o'clock at night, and it was like a random Thursday or Friday, and this car full of young women, younger than me, I was like late 20s. They were like early 20s. Not that big of a difference, right? Whatever. They were driving in a convertible, and they swung over into like the parking lane, and she slowed down. There was a girl driving, a girl next to her, two in the back. And on the count of three, they all went 1, 2, 3, and they yelled out "faggot" at me. And then they cracked themselves up laughing. And I just stopped and looked at them. And the one driving, they're all looking at me. She hit the gas, but she wasn't looking forward, and she flew right into a parked car. And I can't even tell you the visual of this. They were all fine, everybody listening. And if they're listening, I'm sure they might still have some neck issues. But they all got like, it was like, it happened so fast. And they got thrown around like rag dolls, like that. And the car smoke's coming out. But here's where it got interesting. Other passerbyers, other people inside came running out, not to them, to me, and said, "Are you okay? Are you okay? This is 1990s. Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm fine. You might want to go check on them." And then somebody said, "Well, I'm going to call the police." And I said, "Okay." And I started walking. And she goes, No, you have to stay. I go, "Why? I didn't do anything." And I left. And it was the most surreal moment, one of the most surreal moments of my life of who am I in this world? You know what I mean? How am I seen? How do I see myself? And also, do I have telekinetic abilities, kind of like Carrie in the movie Carrie? But it was a really profound moment that I flash back to it constantly. Like, not constantly, but every now and then. It's like, boom, that moment.
Yeah. I mean, I have to tell you, I think the similar story I told about people yelling faggot out the window, it may actually be the first time anybody ever used hate speech in my direction in my 40s. After having grown up in a small town, after having grown up in the 80s and 90s, it was definitely a surreal experience. But what I love about your story is, why should I stick around? And then you just went about your day.
I was hungry. I remember I was like, "Oh, I'm hungry. I gotta go. I don't care if they're hurt or not. That's their problem. I didn't do anything. I was walking." Like, that's how I was.
Yeah.
I find it so interesting too and fascinating. You lived in almost like a bubble, would you say? And then you moved to Chicago. Was that just as a human being, was that like a giant shift?
Well, sure. I mean, so I moved here to Chicago in the mid 90s for college. And so it was a big shift in a lot of ways. I had lived in a small town and then a small city in Vermont. So Chicago was kind of like a playground, honestly, as an 18-year-old in terms of just access to things to do and living in a city, but also being a queer person. I lived in Hyde Park, the neighborhood where I went to college, and it was probably about a 45-minute to an hour journey to go to what was then referred to as Boys Town, which is the gay neighborhood in Chicago. It's known as North Halsted now. It was like a kid in a candy store to sort of be around other queer people, and beyond that, just, all the things the city has to offer after growing up in such a small place.
Was it culture shock at all?
Yes. But, the great thing about being 18 is you don't know any better.
Right.
So it was so different. So different. I also, a lot of the work I do with organizations is around co-creating across difference. And I grew up in a place where there wasn't a lot of difference. I grew up in a very white place. I grew up in a place where almost everybody spoke English. And so just being around people from different backgrounds and races and cultures, that was all new to me all at the same time. And I don't know if it was a culture shock so much as like culture joy. I've always been curious about other people and was so grateful to have so many different kinds of people interact with, and who took me in and who I made friends with.
And I think it was also a different time, obviously, because the ability to communicate and present ourselves, connect with others was not in the palm of our hands. We had to do the work of physically putting ourselves out there. And I think that's a huge shift in not just the gay community, but our community at large as a human race.
Yeah. I mean, pluses and minuses, right? So we started talking earlier about I put out a lot of content on Instagram. It started as a way of trying to connect with possible clients for my coaching. But what it quickly grew into when I realized that I wasn't engaging accounts, I was engaging people, was that I had in the palm of my hand the opportunity to just get to know a lot of different people. And that has been an incredible joy. And on the flip side, I think there is something really wonderful. Like my husband tells this story about being a high school student. He grew up in the western suburbs of Chicago. He talks about having found a tiny little article in a newspaper about a youth group for gay youth. And coming from the suburbs on a metro train, getting in a cab, not even knowing what neighborhood he was going to, and finding this youth group. There is something about that kind of an experience that really makes you value people and relationships and communities when you find them in a way that maybe sometimes getting to know people through an online format can feel really transactional. It's interesting because I find a lot of people who say, oh, I'd really like to find a romantic relationship, or I'm not finding friends or the community I want to be part of, even with it in the palm of our hand.
That's fascinating because in some ways it couldn't be any easier, but I talk about this on the show quite a bit, which is we have this persona of ourselves. Even people listening right now, to us, there's a persona we're putting forward, that is true to it, has truth to it, but it's still a bit of a persona. But especially on social media, it's the people that I connect with are the ones who are putting out their real selves, their real ugly, as I like to call it, and not ashamed to do it and just say, this is who I am, because that's the real stuff. And so I do, I had that thing at times where it's like, I love conversations like this. I love talking to my best friend, Lisa, because we just get into it. And whether we're together or we're on the phone, it's not an ideal of who we are. It's the, showing who we really are.
The truth is we're human, right? So we are messy, 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 messy. We don't show up the same way every time. We have bad days. We get hangry. It does feel like there is a pressure on social media in particular, but in our culture in general, to mask and show up in a certain way. I'm with you. Like, I love weird people. I love odd people. I think of myself as an odd person. And it's the things that are particular to me or particular to somebody I'm in a relationship that makes me love them or be excited about being in connection with them, not their perfection.
And it's funny because it's where I find some of my favorite guests, people like you, but also people I reach out to. There's a guy named Ridge Robertson, and he is a full-time professional jump roper. I'm obsessed with this guy because he has such joy in what he does. And my favorite videos that he puts up are the ones where he screws up, because he's jumping around doing flips and that thing comes out and whacks him in the face and he lands on his side and he gets up laughing his ass off. And it's just that pure joy of him in his moment that every one of us should have every single minute of every day. Yeah.
Oh, that's so great. It's funny because I can't remember who I was speaking about this with recently, but it feels like if you hang out with an 8-year-old, they kind of don't know how to put a mask on. And they don't really want to answer a lot of questions about the past or about the future. They just kind of want to be in the present moment, and they find a lot of things funny. And as an adult, I'm constantly in the process of trying to reteach myself how to be that way. And I can't wait to go and check out the guy you were just talking about, because it sounds fabulous.
It's funny you say that because we are selling our house and we had to have one of the realtors had to come by for the buyer to check something out today. And she showed up with her 3 kids and she said, I'm sorry. I said, bring them in. I don't care. And we have a dog and a cat, and they were, of course, fascinated by that. But she's got 2 little ones that were probably I put them at 6 and 5. And then she had a baby on her hip. And I'm like, You got a lot going on in the middle of everything that you're doing right now. But we have this giant stretch canvas in our dining room. And it's this big conversation piece because it's a rope bridge. I'll send you a picture of it, okay? It's a rope bridge with these little rickety pieces of wood. It's got to be somewhere in like Thailand or somewhere, and it's going into the fog of a forest. And these two kids stopped, and they were just staring at that picture. And it's big. It's like, my God, it's like 7 feet by 9 feet. It's huge. It takes up an entire wall. And they were telling me all about what was happening on the other side of the fog. And their imagination was so good. And they started with the obvious things, right? Like, I see a tree, I see the fog, I think I see a monkey over there. I think that, and then they just went bananas. And I said, how high up do you think this is? And they were just so in their moment. And it's like, that's really where we all need to live. And at the same time, pay our bills, drive around and eat food. That would be great if we could all just come to that moment. But you're right. It's, through the eyes of a child, it's like, wham, and I'm the first one to admit, I'm not really pro on kids. First one to admit it. Not really a plus kid kind of guy. But these kids really fascinate me. And the most fascinating part about them, my friend, is that I knew they were going to leave in about 15 minutes. There, I said it, everybody.
I'll go one further. I worked in schools for 20 years and I feel the same way.
Oh, wow.
I actually love kids. I love other people's kids. I don't want any of my own, and I feel like I dodged a bullet. It was not a path for me. We have some chosen family who have kids, and I have learned so much by being with them.
Okay, so there's a thing about leadership coaching and life coaching. I'm going to come out and just say it. There's a couple people out there who roll their eyes and go, okay, you couldn't make it as a therapist, or okay, you didn't want to be a psychologist or whatever, right? What drew you to coaching?
I love that you name that directly. There is a episode of The Conners, which was the reboot of Roseanne, where the characters are reintroducing themselves after 20 years. And Jackie, who is the sister, says, oh, I've taken a 6-month course at the community college. Now I'm Lanford's greatest life coach. I think that is definitely a perception of our profession, and largely because anybody can say, I'm a coach. And voila, you're a coach. What drew me to work as a coach is I got promoted into an executive role in an organization, and I had no idea what to do. I was so overwhelmed and so underwater and so unskilled, and there was no one in the organization to support me. And I met a woman who I adore. Her name is Valerie Brown. She coached me when I was in that role. And I found it so valuable. She taught me about emotional intelligence. She helped me think through issues. She helped me find my own voice. She helped me trust my own instincts. And there was no doubt in my mind that after working together for 6 months, I was a much better leader. And twice more in my career, I came back to Valerie and said, hey, can we work together? I'm in a new job, or I've got this new problem. And every time Valerie came, and she was really clear with me, as I am with my clients, that I am not your therapist and I'm not your consultant. I'm not going to tell you what to do. And I'm also not going to try to heal things that happened in your childhood. I'm going to help you build your awareness and build your trust in yourself so you can make better choices now and going into the future. And it just was so transformational. And at the third time that I had worked with Valerie, I'd been working in leadership roles in school districts and in state government agencies for probably, 10 or 15 years. And Valerie was saying, what's next for you? And I said, honestly, the thing that really gets me out of bed in the morning in this job is when I get to help adults learn and grow. And I see you get to do that 100% of the time. So I think I'd kind of like to do your job. Only I said it kind of in a whisper, like I was terrified she was going to say, oh my God, Peter, you are way off. You would be terrible at that job. And instead she said, I think you would be great at it. I was trained at a program at Georgetown University, and I got certification from an international body that has standards about what coaching should look like. So that's what I think you should do. And at that point, I really trusted Valerie. So that's what I did.
It's good to have a mentor. I'll tell you that.
100%. Yeah.
On your website, you talk about what is possible through coaching. You got 3 main ones. Well, you have more than that. You have 4. Hold on. You have 5. You have 6. Oh, this arrow keeps going. Look at me clicking my arrows. See, I can do multi things. Let's just talk about a couple of these that I found interesting. The very first one says, thrive through a transition. Are we ever not transitioning as to some degree, or are some of us just in denial that it's even happening? Peter, go. Explain.
Well, okay, so this is my personal philosophy, which is I have been present when several people transitioned into death. And I won't opine on whether there are transitions after that, but I'm pretty convinced that we keep transitioning through things all the way until that happens, and maybe beyond. I've worked with people who are transitioning into their first roles out of college, and I have worked with people transitioning into retirement. I've worked with people who are thinking about what does retirement mean for me, and I do think transition is kind of the nature of being alive.
And you also talk quite a bit. I mean, the word leadership keeps coming up. Why is that so?
For me, leadership means I'm connected to a sense of agency. We live in a world that can often disconnect us from our sense of agency. And I use the word leadership a lot because, one, I do work with people who have formal leadership jobs. And also, I think one of the things that people really connect to often through the coaching we do together is a sense of self-leadership, a sense of getting reconnected to a feeling of agency. Like I can plan out, or I could sense the direction I want to go and have some intentions for myself. And I have a sense that when I put one foot in front of the other, things around me can change.
I love that. And I got to say this, and this gets really specific into the gay, queer, whatever community we want to call ourselves, or this community. I have found, and this is speaking from myself and my own experience, and I brought this up here before, is that I spent the first almost 25 years of myself lying, hiding, being afraid to be myself in front of the people who were closest to me and to the people who were closest to me, which were my family. And so it was interesting for me because I found in that time period, especially in my early 20s, that I had no problem, I don't want to say using people that I didn't know, but not treating people and myself that respectfully, because I had become so good at, look, I faked it with my parents. They had no idea. And here I was doing that to people who I barely knew. It was not a problem not to call somebody back when I said I would call them back, right? It was not a problem to ghost someone, as the kids say today, or whatever it is, or to not show up, because I had no problem facing my own truth and hiding under a false truth to the people who were my everyday for a giant chunk of my life, of course, right? My formative years, right? And so I find that so interesting because I think somebody like you must work with, and don't worry, I did go to lots of therapy, though some people who listen to the show would question if I'd been to any therapy, and to which I say to you, screw you. No, but which is why when you were just telling that story a little bit ago, because the way my brain works, when you're like, and then I went to a whisper and said, I want your job. I always wanted you to say, and then I went to a whisper and I said, I want your soul. No, but that's not what happened. But you must see, or you possibly don't see, or possibly this is a brand new thing that you've never heard of in your life, which I doubt. But what I just told you, it has to come up a lot, especially in the queer community with people, right? To be authentic, but to do it for yourself.
Yeah. I couldn't possibly resonate more with what you're saying, both on a personal level and based on the work that I do with clients. As kids, most queer people were shamed for who they are, or they developed a sense of shame about who they are. And so we learned to pretend, we learned to mask in order to have a sense of well-being. It's pretty hard to believe that what I am is bad and still function in the world. And so I think you see a lot of people who perform a professionalism or a care about their career that's way bigger than what they authentically actually feel. Or if they're creative, they have to be the most creative. Or if they have a nice body, they have to have the most physically fit body. Like, it's very extreme. And a lot of what I have experienced myself, and I also help clients through, is how do we begin to cultivate a sense of belonging to ourselves? Like, we deserve to be in the world. We deserve to be in the world as we are. And then how do we selectively begin to unmask? Meaning, I don't think there's one authentic version of us. I think we all have multiple sides, and no side is a lie. How do we be more choiceful about what parts of us we show to other people? And the quick story I share about this is I worked in leadership roles in school districts for years. And if you had said to me, like, oh, are you masked as a queer person in those jobs? I would have said no, because I was always out in all the jobs that I had. But the reality is, after I no longer am in those roles and I'm working for myself and I'm out in the world talking about queer joy, I can see the ways in which I muted my queer joy in that job, or muted and masked who I really was if people could see me fully. And so definitely part of my joy in working with queer folks is helping the clients that I work with tune into a sense of, I deserve to be here. The things I dream about matter. And people are better off for seeing me as who I really am.
Let's talk about Social Identity Creative Lab. Is this an organization that you built? Is this an organization that you became a part of? What happened? Tell us.
Yeah, so this is an organization that I co-created with my partner in crime, my co-conspirator, Mona Khan. The two of us went to coaching school together and founded our own independent coaching practices. We had endless fascinations in having conversations about identity and power. And we started to work together and realized that other people were interested in what we were talking about, because we could help them solve problems that they were having. So we help organizations with things like, how do you shift your culture? We help organizations with things like, how do you help your team co-create across difference? How do you manage the art of conflict, especially when people in the room don't share the same perspectives and identities? My days are joyfully made up partly of my one-on-one work with queer clients, as well as the work that Mona and I do together in organizations.
Where do people find you? How do they follow you? How do they get coached? Plug away.
Yeah, thank you for asking. So Great Bear Coach on Instagram is a great place to find me. You can also look at Peter Godard on LinkedIn, or you could visit greatbearcoaching.com. And if you're interested in Social Identity Coaching Lab, you can find us at SOCIDlab.com. But if you go to Great Bear Coach on Instagram and send me a message, that's really all you need to know. I can direct you from there.
The final two questions can go back to anything we've already talked about or anything you want to say. Question number one is this: who inspires you?
So I carry my queer ancestors with me. So my queer ancestors is the short version. I will pick one. Her name is Elizabeth. She was a Roman Catholic nun, and I'm fairly certain the life partner of my Roman Catholic aunt, who was also a nun. And what was great about Elizabeth is that she took so much joy in the everyday things. If someone made potatoes for dinner, she was ecstatic about it. And meanwhile, she was teaching Shakespearean literature and leading social justice movements.
And the final question is not a question. It's a sentence to finish. It can be anything you want it to be. It goes like this: tell me something good.
Something good is that joy is the antidote to the challenging world we live in right now.
Thank you, Peter, for sharing all your goodness. Next time on World Gone Good.
As I get older, I somehow have less value in the world, and I have more to say right now, and I know more, and I've done more. That's ironic.
the older I got, the less my voice mattered.
100%.
The less the things that I pitched seemed to have a pathway to get made, because someone, oh yes, you over there. It's this weird thing where women become invisible.
Nobody's taking a moment to actually ground themselves and settle in. And I know that sounds kind of woo-woo and crazy, but it's in order for a creative person to be creative, they need that space.
Yeah.
Jill Shea, Libby Silverman, and Corey Vickers are the Do-Over Divas. It's a new podcast with a rallying cry for anyone being underestimated and ready to take the next chapter of their life by storm. This is a laugh-out-loud show that focuses on women reinventing themselves after 40, exploring career pivots, and navigating the challenges of life's second act. Their motto is show up, speak out, and maybe even start over. And that sounds good to me. I can't wait for you to hear this amazing new episode. Until then, be good.